Hi YouTube, this is one of a series of videos looking at the documentary A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, produced by Bart Sibrel. You will hear me mention him quite a lot. Check out my channel for other videos in the series, or for the box set where you can watch them all in one feature-length video. Part 7. Slow motion and poor quality TV. In this part we take a look at the TV broadcast from the moon and the claim that slow motion was used to fake lunar gravity. As usual, I will identify a list of claims first and then address them one by one.
To demonstrate 1/6 gravity, a bouncy, floaty feel to the astronauts' movements would be similarly achieved with relative simplicity. Slow motion. You are viewing the scenes as they aired more than 30 years ago. Now let's look at them with the speed doubled. It becomes discernible that they are, in fact, in Earth's gravity, and are no more leaving the ground than they would on Earth. It is clear from these rarely seen colour television pictures that the crew of Apollo 11 brought a high-resolution colour video camera with them on their mission, yet the only pictures broadcast live from the moon's surface were these from a low-definition black and white camera. In fact, the networks complained because in addition to this, they were forced to shoot the images, second generation, off of a projection TV of the technology of 30 years ago, and were not even allowed to take a direct feed, which further degraded the quality and clarity of the images. Better to open up their debut mission with fuzzy pictures and numerous blackouts, rather than show too much revealing detail of a false scene that was yet unproven.
There are some fine details we can check to see if this claim is true. In this sequence from Apollo 14, we can see astronauts Ed Mitchell and Alan Shepard unloading equipment from the scientific equipment bay of the lunar module. To their right, we see a lanyard swinging. We can estimate the length of this lanyard and we can check the time of its swing, called the period. We can then use this equation for calculating the swing of a pendulum to derive the gravitational acceleration being exerted upon it. This comes to 1.54 meters per second squared, which, allowing for a margin of error, is close enough to the actual gravitational acceleration on the moon of 1.62 meters per second squared, and obviously not close at all to Earth's 9.8 meters per second squared. We can switch the pendulum equation around to figure out how much we need to speed up the video to make the lanyard swing as it would in Earth's gravity. Or, as Sibrel would have us believe, restore the video to its original state before it was slowed to create fake lunar gravity. This comes to 246%, a bit faster than Sibrel suggested. When we speed the video up by this amount, we see really frantic, unnatural movements from the astronauts, and in objects like the lanyard cord they are working with. Here is another example of a gravitational acceleration calculation, this time using a falling bag, and it gives the same result. We can take the known height of the astronaut's backpack and use it as a guide to measurement. And we get a similar result to the first clip. So when we speed up the footage by the same amount, here earlier in the same clip, we get the same unnatural movements from the astronaut. Here are some more comparisons. The astronauts were not trying to propel themselves as high as possible. They were trying to achieve controlled motion in a low-gravity environment. They obviously adjusted their walk and how much pressure they exerted with each step to this environment, so we would not expect them to be leaping around as Sibrel seems to. Once again, Sibrel feels the need to imply that he is revealing secrets that no one else has seen or noticed. Obviously, television broadcasts from Apollo 11 have been seen by millions of people and are easy to find from a number of internet sources. Although this is true of Apollo 11, there were good reasons for this. A standard US television signal sends 30 frames per second. Each frame is composed of 525 horizontal lines of information. The TV signal describes the colour and intensity of different points along each horizontal line. So it takes a lot of radio bandwidth, data carrying capacity, to transmit a high quality television signal. The size of the transmitting and receiving antenna has a lot to do with how complex a signal you can transmit over distance. The lunar module's built-in antenna was only 1 meter in diameter and could not send as strong and as clear a signal as the freestanding S-band antenna used on Apollos 12 and 14. Apollo 11 mission planners didn't want the crew to spend 30 minutes of their 2-hour moonwalk setting up this antenna. Besides, the world wanted to see Armstrong take his first steps on television, which wouldn't be possible if they had to wait for the large antenna to be set up. The original timing of Apollo 11's moonwalk put the big radio telescopes at Goldstone and Honeysuckle Creek on the wrong side of the Earth to receive the signal, meaning the smaller antennas of the manned spaceflight network, which were not capable of picking up a weak complex signal, would have to be used. So the engineers decided to reduce the complexity of the TV signal. There are a number of ways this was done. First, they dropped the colour information. If you only have to send intensity information, i.e. black and white pictures, you can cut the bandwidth by 2/3. Then they reduced the number of horizontal lines. This of course reduced the clarity of the image, but it cut the signal size by 1/3. Then they reduced the number of frames per second. This reduced it by 2/3. The result was a signal that could be squeezed into the limited data carrying capacity of the small antenna, requiring only about 5% of the information of a standard full-colour signal. But this TV signal was no longer compatible with the standard equipment on the ground, so a low-tech solution was used. It's relatively easy to modify a standard television tube to display this slow-course signal from Apollo 11. Then a standard television camera was aimed at this TV screen, producing a television signal at the correct frame rate and resolution for broadcast. NASA supplied sharper, clearer, lengthier telecasts as time went on, and today you can buy detailed, high-quality digital copies of all the Apollo visual material, inviting closer and closer scrutiny. If the purpose of the grainy Apollo 11 television was to hide the wires, why risk exposing those wires later? NASA was trying to meet Kennedy's challenge of landing a man on the moon before the end of the decade. Kennedy had said nothing about sending back television pictures, collecting rocks, and setting up experiments. Apollo 11's mission objective was simply to land and return safely, and anything that would delay that simple mission was given lower priority. Colour television did not contribute to the probability of mission success, and so it was omitted on Apollo 11. NASA did not plan for Apollo 11 to be the only mission. Therefore, they didn't intend Apollo 11 to single-handedly accomplish the objectives of the entire program. It was understood that subsequent missions would build on Apollo 11's success and take advantage of the lessons learned, and therefore have greater expectations. And so to fulfill the primary goal, certain secondary goals were allowed to be delayed. Extensive experimentation, astronomy, high-quality photography, the lunar rover. Apollo 11 was sent to the moon on time to meet Kennedy's challenge, even though the technology not directly related to the landing was still being developed and tested. Whilst it's true that the TV quality was poor, it is simply untrue to claim that there were numerous blackouts. There was a single 6-second break in the 2.5-hour Apollo 11 moonwalk TV transmission. Well, it's been an arduous journey through misunderstanding, mischaracterization, and misinformation. But we have made it through to the big climax. In the final section of A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, Sebrell reveals what he claims is secret footage of the Apollo 11 crew faking their mission. Thanks for watching. Please rate, comment, and subscribe.